Hello and welcome to Unmistakably Star Wars and this episode of Rebels Reaction. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Christine.
On this episode, we react to Warhead. Christine, your one-word reaction.
Validating.
Validating. My word is bully. Let's go.
You know of the rebellion against the Empire?
Perhaps you referred to the imminent attack on your rebel fleet.
Where is the rebel base?
I didn't know there was anyone willing to stand up against the Empire.
All right, we are reacting to Warhead. Your one-word reaction was validating. Why? Or validate?
Validating.
Validating.
Well, it's validating for Zeb.
Okay.
So, Zeb was the captain of the Royal Guard for his whole planet. That's a pretty intense role, and it takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of cunning, it takes, obviously, bulk and the ability to fight, but it's more than just being a grunt.
Yeah.
And obviously in the beginning of this episode, we see that Zeb is being treated like a grunt. He is left in charge of the base, which is good, but it's clear by AP5's demeanor toward him that he isn't respected as a skilled warrior, just a kind of grunt. And that's kind of, as we've seen lately, how Zeb has been treated. Early on in the seasons, he had more of like a prominent role, I think, but now he's kind of degraded into just this go punch some heads kind of guy.
Well, he does tend to talk about that a lot.
He does.
He just wants to smash Stormtrooper
He plays into
head.
it.
So there's a level of competence there that he should have, based on his previous positions.
Yeah, and then he does, and we've seen it kind of a long time ago, but it has more or less faded to the background. So it's nice having that come back and have him be. I mean, he was still acting like it was all by chance and accident, but at least it was validating that he did something well.
Yeah.
That took some cunning to work out.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of where, at least that attitude of AP5 and Chopper as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of the Ghost crew is kind of like, hey, you can stay. Hera, obviously, I think, has a respect for Zeb and trusts him with the base.
Yeah.
But everybody else is kind of like, hey, yeah, see you later.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do any good on this training exercise anyway, so you might as well stay here.
Yeah.
And then Chopper and AP5 just rag on him the entire time, so they're just bullying him pretty much throughout the entire episode. So there's my word, but by the end of the episode, it's kind of a, hey, good for you, Zeb. At least that validation of his abilities. But it was interesting just to kind of see that dynamic, and as Zeb and AP5 kind of come together by the end of the episode, like, hey, we work together. And I just thought it was really funny, Zeb's remarks on, hey, lots happened today. I don't know if I can handle us getting along as well.
Just gonna tip the scales too much.
Yeah. So that was an interesting dynamic, I think, that played out overall.
Yeah.
And it kind of encompassed the whole episode. So let's jump into the big three. Number one, Zeb's left in charge.
Yeah.
So he's the rest of the Ghost crew goes out on a training mission with the majority of the pilots. I assume this is just an exercise to kind of work on formations and what have you. Not really key to the episode, but Zeb's left in charge and is kind of bummed out about it because although he's in charge, he doesn't feel like he really has anything to do.
Yeah. Well, side note, I think the training exercise is pretty vital because Hobby and Wedge just run smack into each other. They clearly don't have a lot of skill in awareness of where each other are.
At least outside the cockpit.
Outside the cockpit.
Hopefully in the cockpit they're doing okay.
Hopefully this training exercise will help.
Yeah. So we see, even before we see the Ghost crew at Chopper Base, they are we see these what look like probe droids turn out to be small ships with droids in them.
Yeah.
Being released from Star Destroyers, and one of these lands near Chopper Base, and the droid gets attacked by spiders. Zeb goes out and finds it, and then decides to bring it back to the base, which Chopper says that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And that'll come back again later on when that droid activates into its more aggressive form.
Yeah.
And that really kind of
Pretty intense.
encapsulates number 2 in poor choice. So Zeb probably could have done a little bit more digging around, because they haven't seen any other life forms or droids around the base, at least that we're
Yeah, any
aware of.
sentient life forms.
Yeah, and I guess other than Bendu, but Bendu's a kind of another...
Whole different world.
Yeah, and Zeb really hasn't interacted with him. So Zeb could have been a little more cautious,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of speaks to his character as far as...
Impulsive.
Impulsive. I'm just going to make a decision and we're going to go with it,
Mhm.
whether that's the best decision at the moment or not.
Mhm.
So AP5 having a little bit of context kind of helps with that, and then kind of the bulk of the episode ensues. What did you think of kind of this protocol droid turning into Death Robot?
It was a little, I don't know, when Fulcrum sent the images, it was like, it doesn't seem legitimate how what we just saw could turn into something like that. But when they actually showed the droid turning into it, it seemed not ridiculous. Weird, but not ridiculous as far as like it looked like it could actually potentially house those parts inside of that small body.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't like the fact that Zeb brought the droid
Mm-hmm.
there, because it does seem out of character for someone who was the head of security for a planet.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's just pick this
he's
thing
bored,
up and
but
yeah. So he kind of says, well, we can take in another stray. It might be
Mhm.
useful. Yeah, but you never know. So it's just an interesting dynamic. I don't know if really anyone other than Hera, maybe Kanan, are very cautious
yeah, I
when
guess
it comes
that's
to
true.
protecting the base. Because Ezra always just seems to be doing whatever he feels like is best in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah,
Sabine, I think she's cautious to a point, but has a sense about her that, okay, I can kind of figure this out as I go along.
yeah, and she's not much of a leader, so she's more the, like, other people are doing the main job of protecting the base, and she's doing the small stuff of like engaging in this firefight and engaging in that firefight, protecting people.
Yeah. So it's just interesting that Zeb kind of takes this step and really doesn't think about it, and
Mhm.
it ends up being something that's could be potentially very costly.
Yeah,
So the episode, I found it interesting that the episode built towards the revelation that this droid is actually dangerous,
yeah,
and the whole interaction as it's trying to escape / kill everyone.
hmm
Its protocol form seemed very different and far less agile than
yeah,
its attack form.
yeah,
So I found that sort of kind of funky as far
Yeah.
as that transformation, because as we're seeing more types of droids be introduced into canon, they're fairly different than ones we've seen in the live action films.
yeah,
K2SO is kind of the exception to that for
Yeah.
the most part, but
Yeah.
he's still very robotic, where some of the battle droids we saw, especially later generations in the Clone Wars, were similar to what this one ended up being,
hmm
but it still seems a little out of... It takes me out of the thought that, okay, this is Star Wars and that's a droid.
yeah. It seems kind of like the assassin droids when he's in his crazy form, but going from protocol droid to that is kind of a weird jump.
Yeah. But I think it drove the narrative of the story the direction it needed to be.
Yeah, definitely.
So it served that purpose. It was just kind of threw me off a little
disorienting.
bit. A little bit. Then Zeb, as they recapture and deactivate the droid, AP5 does a little bit of work. It's revealed that there's a proton bomb.
Yeah.
Or Warhead.
Yeah.
Hence the name of the episode. In the droid itself, and if it's captured, it'll explode. Some quick thinking, and again, AP5 rags on Zeb for that.
Yeah.
We're gonna
His
be
ability.
here. We're gonna be here a while. To figure out what to do. He says, "Okay, is there a way that we can reprogram it or reset it to explode once it's reconnected?"
Yeah.
And AP5 tries to do that. Chopper freezes the countdown circuit.
Yeah.
So it felt kind of like a typical, okay, can we rewire this, or can we stop this bomb from going off, just in films or TV shows or what? I think kind of Lethal Weapon-esque to me. That it's something that just a very
pretty normal experience.
Well, just a common archetype or theme,
Yeah.
or a scenario that comes up, and I thought it was kind of funny that they went about it the way they did.
Yeah.
And the idea is great. I think if there's this warhead that's supposed to explode and destroy an entire base or whatever is around it, so can we use it against the Empire? Great thinking.
Yeah.
They're able to do that, and AP5 is a little hesitant towards the end of, well, what if
I did it wrong?
Did it wrong, and they still have our information? And Zeb's kind of like, well, it's too late now, and it's worth the risk.
Yeah. Which that was kind of a cool point from him, because it shows more complex thinking, more deep thinking about the security, kind of the benefit versus the cost of the steps he took toward protecting them.
Yeah.
It's not just like go shoot some things or crush some heads and then just always blow it up wherever we can because we don't have any more complicated way of handling the situation.
Yeah, and I think with Fulcrum interjecting himself multiple times in the episode,
Yeah.
I found that kind of interesting. One, to alert the rebels, Zeb specifically, to the fact that these droids are out there.
Yeah.
And if they don't check in, then things are not going to go the way we want. So I found that assistance kind of interesting, especially in view of the end of the episode, which brings us to number 3, danger ahead. So
Oh yeah.
Zeb's plan works pretty much to perfection.
It does.
The droid gets back, it's hooked up to the Imperial system, and it explodes, destroying
Like half a Star Destroyer.
the Star Destroyer that it's on. Agent Callus, aka Fulcrum, is somewhat pleased that
Yeah.
that they were
Gets a
able
little
to do
smirk
that.
going.
Yeah, but I think kind of for me it was the climax of the episode, as the Star Destroyer's sinking, quote unquote. It's destroyed.
Yeah.
And Callus goes in, and there's Thrawn.
Yes.
And Callus is, you can kind of tell he's, well, they...
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
Bummer.
And Thrawn.
Yes.
He's just always
Always a step ahead.
a step ahead, but knows exactly what he wants and needs.
Yeah.
So he's willing to take the sacrifice of losing the Star Destroyer and probably hundreds, if not thousands, of Imperial Navy personnel, the ship, the droids, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of the hundreds of systems or thousands of systems, he's now narrowed it down to less than
94.
100. Yeah, 94.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of shocks Callus.
Yeah.
Because Callus is like, okay, good. They evaded
Yeah.
detection once again. But because they only sent out a limited number and they got them all back,
Mm-hmm.
now
It
Thrawn
has to be one of that group.
well, yeah, Thrawn feels like he knows. So the focus has narrowed dramatically, and I think there's going to be a lot of danger ahead for Chopper Base because it's Thrawn knows where they're at.
Yeah, he knows.
Not pinpoint,
He knows generally where they're at. Yeah.
but if I can narrow something, if my odds can go from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 100,
Much more likely to
yeah,
get-
I'm going to take that bet
Yeah.
way more than I'm going to take 1 in 1,000.
And if he has the potential to send out these droids, he can send out as many waves of any sort of droid or any sort of recon type machine he wants to these 94 places, and until he gets the readings that he wants.
Which will be the interesting thing to see if they're going to continue to use that same strategy. I would anticipate this is probably the last time we'll see this droid.
Well, yeah. I mean, like they can now send recon droids.
Well, yeah, or
to
Just
or
probe
different-
droids,
yeah,
whatever
probe
it might
droids,
be.
whatever.
But it's just interesting how we'll see one kind of droid used,
show up,
and then we probably won't see it again.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. But I'm excited and kind of curious as to where Thrawn's going to take this now and how he's going to approach finding the rebels.
Yeah.
So what's kind of your bottom line for this episode overall?
I liked the episode overall. It just, in general, it bothers me that Zeb's character has kind of regressed from someone who has a lot of complexity to someone who's not as complex.
Yeah.
And I like that he's going back the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
And that his role seemed to be expanding. Like most of this season so far, we haven't seen much of him, and obviously he was the focus of this episode. So hopefully that will expand again, because I really like his character. He's fascinating to me, and his past adds so much more depth to each interaction we have with him. So I like that that's moving in a good direction.
Yeah.
And I liked Chopper's noises. I have a bad feeling about this. And when he was trying to find the other droid going, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Totally a kid on the playground.
Yeah.
I like that we're starting to be able to understand what he's kind of saying and doing. Probably partly because we have more experience with him and listening to his noises, but also they're making a point to use his beeping in a clever way.
Yeah, I thought it was a good episode to start to drive the story for the second half of this season.
Mm-hmm.
The Ghosts of Geonosis, I think, introduced Saw and kind of tied together a little bit more of Rogue One and Rebels,
Yeah.
and how those might continue to interact moving forward.
Yeah.
But I don't really feel like it changed the dynamic of the Rebels story moving forward.
Yeah, I can see that.
Whereas as this one, it was great to see Zeb as the centerpiece character in the episode, since we haven't really seen him. We've talked about that all season long, that he's kind of been
in the background
or on the side of many of the things that are going on. So that was good to see. I thought the quick thinking and kind of I like the sabotage aspect of reprogramming the droid.
Instead of just taking it out to wilderness and letting it blow up.
Yeah, or destroying it or whatever it might be. That was clever and fun. But I think more than anything, and it was such a small part of the episode, that whenever Thrawn shows up, he seems to dominate the episode for me, whatever capacity he shows up.
Yeah, he almost takes the air out of the room. Like, any interaction with him is just like, whoa.
Yeah, and I think they've done a very good job of developing his character in that
Yeah.
way, and really making a point of showing that he's in charge and is intimidating because of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I think that was the key piece of the episode for me. It all built up to that and revealed that they're the continued greater plans, because we feel really good for the rebels.
Yeah.
That, like, Zeb, you did it,
Yeah. Saved him.
but right as the episode closes, it's kind of like, oh,
dang it.
man. Yeah, exactly. So I really like that, because it pushes the story forward for me instead of just kind of a happy, like, mission accomplished
Yeah, like
ending.
a nice bow tied on top and everything is good from there on out.
Yeah. So we get both of those elements, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And it's fun
Which
to
is
see
good.
that. Yeah, and it's in contrast to so much of what we saw in season 1 and 2, where a lot of episodes were kind of tied with that bow of,
Yeah. Very self-contained, very not a lot of connection after that to potential dangers coming.
well, and just that the rebels accomplished whatever they were trying to, and it was
They always win.
essentially, a happy ending
Yeah.
of sorts to that episode. So I think that's good, and a good trend that we've seen in this season so far.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
I'm excited to see where this goes, and I think part of what's so intimidating about Thrawn is that he's never taken aback. He obviously is a big blow. His method of trying to find the rebel base literally blew up in his face. Like,
Yeah.
a Star Destroyer blew up because of the method he was taking, and he's not like, oh no, what do we do? He's like, oh, we learned something. This is good. And his inability to be taken aback is part of what makes him so intimidating. Just like just read The Lords of the Sith, and how Palpatine is never taken aback by anything, partly because he can foresee what's going to happen,
Yeah.
but it's terrifying because he knows and he's never surprised. So no matter how much someone is working against him or giving everything they have to work against him, he's never taken aback, so he has the power in the situation. Just like Thrawn, he's not taken aback, so even though he didn't win this little battle, he still has the power in the situation because he basically just takes it by his demeanor and by his inability to be surprised and to be afraid.
Yeah. And I think him just kind of, even though he's in it for, probably 30 seconds or less, dominates the episode.
Yeah. Just a
So-
really intense personality.
Overall, great episode. Continued great season of Rebels. That wraps up this episode. Be sure to check us out online at unmistakably.starwars.com. Our shows throughout the week. The main show on Tuesdays. Star Wars on Tap on Thursdays. Force Discourse or Vintage Recap on Fridays. And then we're always here on Mondays.
Yes, we are.
So for this episode of Rebels Reaction, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Christine.
Be sure to check us out the next time a Rebels episode airs. Until then, may the Force be with you.